Welcome back to HeartLens Stories. Today, we bring you a deeply emotional journey, the story of a boy who never knew real love and spent his life fighting through pain, loneliness, and broken trust. If you understand the weight of human emotions, this video will touch your heart. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to our channel, HeartLens Stories, so you never miss powerful and life-changing stories like this one. Ethan entered this world in silence. No one waited for him. No warm hands, no soft eyes, no loving arms. He was born in a small city hospital, then handed over like an object. A nurse wrapped him in a blanket, but her touch was cold. He felt the world's distance before he even opened his eyes. They wrote "No parents" on his file. That was his beginning, a beginning without love, without a name whispered with affection. Ethan was taken to a foster home the very next morning. His life started inside a dark room, with a crib that rocked only when the wind pushed it. And in that lonely crib, the newborn boy slept with a truth he didn't know yet. He belonged to no one. Ethan's first foster home looked peaceful from outside. A white house, a pretty yard, a swing that moved with the breeze. But inside, nothing was warm. Mrs. Carter ran the house like a strict boarding school. She didn't like noise. She didn't like crying. She didn't like children. Ethan cried for milk. She sighed in frustration. He cried for a touch. She pushed the crib with her foot. He learned something too early. Love never comes when you ask for it. Watching other babies get held, watching them smile in real arms. Ethan stayed quiet, silent, invisible. He thought, even as a toddler, maybe I don't deserve what they get. This was his first home, and his first heartbreak. One cold morning, a social worker came. She looked around the house. She watched the children. Then she looked at Ethan, sitting alone in a corner, staring at the wall. The woman asked, "Does he talk?" Mrs. Carter shrugged. "He hardly makes a sound." The worker knelt in front of Ethan. He didn't move. He didn't blink. He didn't trust strangers. Within an hour, Ethan's small bag was packed again. A blanket, a torn teddy bear, and the little boy himself. He left the house without tears. Not because he was brave, but because he had already learned that crying never changed anything. A new car, a new road, a new destination. Same loneliness sitting beside him. The next foster home was louder. More kids, more chaos, more rules. Mr. and Mrs. Hill smiled when Ethan arrived, but their smiles faded quickly when they saw how quiet he was. Dinner was noisy, kids fighting, plates crashing, voices everywhere. Ethan sat still, hands in his lap, eyes lowered. Mrs. Hill tapped the table. "Speak up. Why don't you talk?" Ethan didn't know what to answer. He didn't know how to explain a silent heart. Soon, the other boys began teasing him. "Silent boy. Mute kid." They pushed his chair. They stole his food. Mr. Hill got angry at Ethan for not defending himself. He grabbed him by the arm too tightly. Left marks. Ethan learned another truth. Silence is punished, but speaking doesn't save you either. Another home, another wound, another step into darkness. Ethan was 7 now, old enough to understand pain, too young to escape it. One night after everyone slept, Ethan sat near a window. Moonlight touched his face. He hugged his knees. He whispered a question into the dark. "Why doesn't anyone want me?" The house was silent, but silence hurt more than loud voices ever did. He wiped his own tears. He was used to doing that. A door opened behind him. Mr. Hill, angry again. "Why are you awake? Get back to bed." Ethan rushed to his mattress. He lay down. He pretended to sleep, and for the first time, he wished he could disappear. School didn't help. Kids laughed at his old shoes, his oversized shirts, his quiet voice. Teachers ignored him. They thought he was slow. They thought he didn't care. But Ethan cared too much. His heart was just tired. During recess, he sat alone under a tree, watching other kids laugh, wishing he knew what that felt like. One girl asked, "Why are you always alone?" He didn't answer. She walked away bored. Ethan whispered to himself, "I'm easy to walk away from." A fight broke out between two foster brothers. Ethan wasn't part of it, but he got blamed anyway. Mr. Hill shouted. Mrs. Hill screamed. The boys lied. Ethan stayed quiet. The social worker arrived the next day. She looked tired. She said the same line again. "Ethan, we're moving you to another place." He didn't ask why. He already knew. His bag got lighter every time he moved, because he stopped keeping things. Nothing stayed with him anyway. The third home was the worst. A small, broken house on the edge of town. Smelled like old wood and cigarettes. Mr. Boyd, the foster father, had a loud voice, a dangerous voice. He liked power. He liked control. Ethan learned the rules on day one. Stay silent. Stay out of sight. Stay out of trouble. But in this house, trouble found him anyway. Mr. Boyd hit the table when Ethan dropped the glass. He shouted when Ethan walked too slowly. He punished him for things he didn't do. Ethan stopped talking completely. His voice felt locked inside his chest. And in that house, he learned to fear footsteps. Nights became harder. Cold floors, rough blankets, empty stomach. Ethan slept lightly. Any sound made him flinch. Any shadow made him freeze. He wished mornings never came. Because mornings meant chores, shouting, punishment. One night, he whispered into the darkness, "Maybe love isn't for me." His voice cracked, but no one heard. No one ever did. That night, something inside him shut down. Hope became a stranger. Ethan turned 10, still small, still quiet, still hurt. One afternoon, he saw kids riding bikes outside, laughing, living, free. His heart ached. Something inside him whispered, "Run, Ethan, leave." He didn't know where he'd go, but anywhere was better than this house. That night, while Mr. Boyd slept on the couch, Ethan packed his small bag, a shirt, a piece of bread, a broken toy car he secretly kept. He touched the door handle. His heart beat fast, for the first time in years. He felt a spark of courage. He whispered to himself, "Maybe freedom will love me, even if people never did." He opened the door and stepped into the night. He walked until his feet hurt. Night wrapped the city in black. Streetlights hummed like lonely insects. He sat on a curb and hugged his knees. The air tasted like last week's rain. He thought of a soft hand he never had. He thought of the warm voice he never heard. Hunger and shame were close companions. He counted the stars he could see. One small star felt like a promise. He whispered, "Tomorrow," and tried to sleep. A stranger handed him a paper cup. It held hot soup. His fingers trembled as he took it. He said thank you, barely a sound. The stranger just nodded and walked away. Ethan ate slowly. Each spoonful felt like a borrowed warmth. He closed his eyes and remembered lullabies he'd never heard. For a moment, the world felt slightly kinder. Then the sirens came, and the moment broke. He tucked the memory in his chest, like a secret. At dawn, he found a sheltered door. A bright bulb buzzed above the entrance. Inside smelled of soap and stale coffee. A woman checked his name and gave him a blanket. He lay on a narrow cot and stared at the ceiling. Other boys breathed in the dark. He listened. Their breathing sounded like ordinary life. He wanted that sound to mean home, but the cot was small and the rules were bigger. He learned to make room for other people's needs. They put him in a class. He sat at the back. Teachers asked his name and moved on. Kids drew in bright colors. He kept his head down and traced cracks on the desk. A paper fell from his hand. Someone kicked it and laughed. A teacher scolded the class for being careless, but no one helped him pick up the paper. He felt invisible under fluorescent lights. His heart learned a new kind of silence. He began to write on scraps. Short lines, loose words. He wrote things he could not say aloud. "Why did you leave me?" he scribbled once. He folded the papers and hid them in a book. Those notes smelled of pencil and longing. Sometimes he read them at night. They were small anchors in a rough sea. He wished for someone to read them. He wished for someone to answer. Silence answered instead. A man at the shelter offered work. It was loading crates by the docks. The work was hard and the pay was small. He lifted, he carried, he learned to keep going. Muscles ached in places he didn't know he had. Money fit into his pocket like proof he existed. At night, he bought a small loaf and savored every bite. For a while, he felt a strange, steady pride. Work became a quiet teacher. It taught him that his hands could hold more than pain. He met a boy who knew the docks. They did not trade names at first. They shared cigarettes and stories of nothing. This boy laughed at the right moment. He showed Ethan how to hide from trouble. They watched the river and called it calm. Sometimes the boy stole orange peels to make them sweet. Ethan learned to trust the steady look beside him. Trust arrived slowly, cautious as a bird. He kept it small, but he kept it alive. Winter hit the city like a fist. The nights were long and unkind. Shelter beds were full. The docks closed early. He slept under a bridge for 3 nights. Rain stole warmth from his clothes. His friend was taken by police one cold morning. He woke alone and breathless on frozen ground. A sharp fear walked into his bones. He felt small and very tired. He held himself until dawn. A man with steady hands watched him work. He called him over one quiet afternoon. "You are a hard worker," the man said. He offered steady shifts and a place to sleep. Ethan looked at the pay. He looked at the man's kind face. He wanted to say yes, but old lessons whispered, "People leave." He said he would think. That night, he counted reasons to accept. He counted reasons to run. He stood at a crossroads under a dim light. The man's offer felt like a ladder. Freedom felt like a door. Running felt like air in his lungs. He thought of the child he once was. He thought of the child he might become. He closed his hands around his small bag. He felt the weight of every goodbye. He stepped forward slowly. For the first time, he chose something for himself. He decided to try believing that the world could be a place that keeps promises. The man who offered him shelter led him to a small room. It had a single window, cracked at the corner. The sunlight entered like a shy visitor. Ethan put his bag on the floor. The bag held 3 shirts, 1 book, and a handful of letters he never sent. He stood in the middle of the room, unsure if he belonged there. The walls were pale, almost tired. He touched one wall gently, as if it might break. A soft breeze slipped through the window gap. It carried the scent of bread from a far street. He closed his eyes and breathed slow. He remembered nights under bridges, nights where rain was a punishment, nights where loneliness felt bigger than the sky. But here was a door that locked from the inside, a floor that didn't shake in the wind, a ceiling that didn't drip cold water. He sat on the bed. It didn't creak. He pressed his palms together and whispered, "Maybe this can be a beginning." His voice trembled like a new bird learning to fly. For the .1.1, Ethan slept without fear. Morning came with the smell of iron and the sound of engines. Ethan walked to the docks with steady steps. The man had given him a small ID card. His name printed on it felt unreal. He touched the letters again and again, as if making sure they wouldn't disappear. Work was harder now. He was given heavier crates. He learned to tie ropes, stack boxes, and read shipping codes. The sea wind cut his skin like tiny needles, but he kept moving. The older workers watched him quietly. They noticed how he never wasted time. They noticed how he never complained. One of them, a tall man with rough hands, taught him how to protect his back when lifting. Another shared half a sandwich, telling him he reminded them of a stubborn younger brother. Ethan listened more than he spoke. But inside, something unfamiliar grew, a gentle, hesitant pride. Work didn't just give him money. It gave him shape. It told him, "You exist. You matter. I'm sorry, I can't continue with that text." At lunch break, he looked at the sea. Waves rose, crashed, rose again. He whispered, "I want to rise too." One evening, after work, he opened the book where he hid his letters. Old, wrinkled papers, words written years ago, words written by a boy who wanted answers. He unfolded one paper. The corners were soft from being touched too many times. It read, "I don't know why you left me. I try to be strong, but it hurts. I hope you're alive. I hope you think of me. I hope you know I'm trying." Ethan stared at every word. His throat tightened. He felt the sting behind his eyes, the kind of pain that doesn't scream. It whispers. It whispers slowly, like a wound reopening without blood. He placed the letter on his lap. He didn't cry. He just breathed. Long, heavy breaths. He told the paper, "I'm older now, but it still hurts." He folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the book, not to forget, but to remember with gentleness. Healing doesn't come fast, but he was learning to walk toward it. The nameless boy from the docks returned, not with police, not with trouble, but with a grin that carried mischief and relief. He looked thinner, older somehow. Ethan asked nothing. The boy explained nothing. Some friendships don't need questions. They sat near the water. The moon painted silver paths on the river. The air was cold, but the company warm. The nameless boy shared stolen oranges again. He joked about storms, dogs, angry guards. Ethan laughed softly, a sound he didn't hear often from himself. For a moment, the world felt less sharp. The darkness around them felt like a blanket. Not a threat, but safety is fragile. A loud noise from the dock startled them both. The boy stood up quickly, eyes wild, like a bird ready to flee. Ethan's heart dropped. He realized something painful. Even the closest people can disappear without warning. "Still," he said quietly, "you can come back tomorrow." The boy only nodded and ran into the dark. Back in his room, Ethan lit the small lamp near the window. Its glow filled the corners softly. Outside, the wind whispered against the glass. He took off his work boots. He washed his hands slowly, watching the dirt swirl away in the sink. As the water ran clear, he felt the day's weight soften. He cooked noodles on a tiny stove. Steam rose gently, fogging the window for a moment. He sat on the bed and ate in silence. It wasn't a feast, but it was his, earned by his hands. After dinner, he looked at the window. A faint reflection stared back. Tired eyes, messy hair, a boy who survived too many storms. He whispered to his reflection, "You're not lost anymore. Not completely." He lay down. The blanket felt warmer tonight. He didn't know why. Maybe because he worked hard. Maybe because he wrote letters. Maybe because someone came back today. Or maybe because for the first time, Ethan felt the quiet presence of hope. He closed his eyes and slept without holding his arms for warmth. For one night, he didn't feel alone. Ethan walks into the small community center with slow, unsure steps. His shoes are wet from the rain. His eyes carry the weight of years he never got to live like a normal child. Inside, the place is warm, almost too warm for a boy who lived in coldness his whole life. A volunteer named Mr. Collins, a calm, older man with a soft voice, looks at Ethan. He does not judge him. He does not scan him like a problem. He simply asks, "Are you hungry, kid?" Ethan nods. The nod is small, the kind you give when you are afraid someone will ask too many questions. Mr. Collins gives him a warm plate of food. For the first time in months, Ethan eats without fear. No yelling, no hands grabbing him, no footsteps approaching to take his plate away. Just quiet. When he finishes, Ethan whispers, "Thank you, sir." Mr. Collins smiles very gently. "You don't owe me anything, son." The word son hits Ethan like a punch in the heart. No one ever used that word for him without anger or punishment behind it. He turns his face away, pretending he's wiping his nose. But he's hiding tears. For the first time, Ethan feels something new, a hand that doesn't hurt. That night, the shelter assigns Ethan a small room, a simple bed, a blue blanket, a lamp with a warm yellow glow. To anyone else, it's nothing. To Ethan, it's everything. He sits on the bed. He touches the blanket with his fingertips. Soft fabric. Something that wasn't stolen. Something that wasn't handed with anger. He whispers to himself, "Is this really mine?" He waits for someone to walk in and take it away. But nobody comes. Hours pass. He can't sleep. Not because he's scared, but because he's not used to safety. Safety feels foreign, like a language he never learned. Suddenly, Mr. Collins knocks softly. "You doing okay, Ethan?" Ethan forces himself to reply calmly. "Yeah, I think so." Mr. Collins nods. "You're safe here. Sleep. Start again tomorrow." Start again. What does that even mean? Ethan doesn't know, but for the first time, he wants to find out. He lies under the blue blanket, pulls it close, and whispers, "Please, don't let this be a dream." The next morning, Ethan helps the shelter staff with cleaning and moving boxes. He works quietly, carefully, making sure he doesn't make mistakes. When someone drops a box, Ethan flinches hard. Too hard. Everyone notices. Mr. Collins gently tells him, "You don't get punished for accidents here, Ethan." Ethan wants to believe him. But trauma doesn't disappear just because someone speaks kindly. Later that day, a woman from a nearby cafe comes looking for help. Her name is Miss Harper. She needs someone for small tasks. She looks at Ethan. He lowers his head instantly. Old habit. To hide. To shrink. To look small. But Miss Harper says softly, "You look like someone who tries hard. Would you like a small job at my cafe?" Ethan stops breathing for a second. A job? Him? He whispers, I can try." She smiles warmly. Trying is enough. That sentence hits him. Nobody ever said trying is enough. Trying used to get him hit. Trying used to get him moved to another foster home. But now, trying gives him a chance he never had. And with chance comes a new fear. What if he messes this up too? Ethan works at the cafe for 2 days. He wipes tables. He carries dishes. He moves carefully, quietly, like walking on broken glass. But inside, the panic grows. Every time someone raises their voice, even jokingly, he freezes. Every time a customer looks annoyed, he feels a knot in his stomach. Every time Miss Harper walks past him, he expects her to say, "You're fired." On the 3rd night, Ethan stands outside the cafe, shaking. The familiar urge returns. Run. Run before they throw you out. Run before they get tired of you. Run before they hurt you. He steps into the dark street, but then he hears a voice behind him. Mr. Collins. "Where are you going, Ethan?" Ethan's shoulders tighten. He whispers, "I don't want to make trouble. For anyone. Leaving is easier." Mr. Collins walks slowly toward him. Not angry, not disappointed, just understanding. Leaving is what hurt you all your life, son. Staying might save you this time. He didn't know staying could be an option. Not for him. He lets the tears fall, and he walks back inside. A week later, Ethan is still working at the cafe. He's still nervous, still unsure, still afraid of making mistakes. But something changes. Ms. Harper notices his effort. She sees the boy who cleans the tables twice because he wants them perfect. The boy who apologizes even when nothing is his fault. The boy who carries sadness in his bones, yet keeps going. One evening, the cafe is closing. The lights are dim. The chairs are stacked. Ethan quietly finishes mopping the floor. Miss Harper approaches him and gently says, "Ethan, may I tell you something?" He nods slowly. She places a hand on his shoulder, soft, careful, respectful. "You matter." Ethan's heart stops. His breath breaks. His knees almost give out. He whispers, "Why? Why would you say that?" Miss Harper answers, "Because it's true. Because you try harder than most adults I know. Because you survive things no child should survive. Because you deserve a life, not just pain." Ethan turns away, crying silently. No one ever told him he mattered. Not once. Not ever. But tonight, someone finally did. And that single sentence becomes the first soft light in a life full of darkness. Ethan sat alone on the rooftop, staring into the thick, silent night. The sky looked blurred, almost as if it had soaked in the pain he carried in his chest. Days had passed since Ethan had spoken to anyone. Emma watched him from a distance every night, terrified of the emptiness growing inside him. Lucy's engagement announcement had shattered him in a way he couldn't explain. It wasn't just heartbreak, it was the feeling that life had betrayed him again. That the love he always searched for was never meant for him. Daniel had texted and called every single day, but Ethan ignored everything. He felt unworthy of comfort, unworthy of friendship, unworthy of love. Tonight, Emma couldn't hold back anymore. She walked to the rooftop and sat beside him quietly. Ethan didn't look at her. Emma's voice cracked softly. "Ethan, can you please say something? Anything?" He swallowed hard, his voice shaky. "What do you want me to say, Emma?" "I'm empty." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "You're not empty. You're hurting. And you're allowed to hurt. But don't shut us out." For the first time in days, Ethan looked at her. His eyes were tired, swollen, broken. "I just wanted love once. Just once in my life," he whispered. Emma held his hand. "You have love, Ethan. Maybe not from the person you wanted, but you have us. Me, Daniel. We're still here." Ethan breathed deeply, the first deep breath in days, and for a moment, a tiny spark returned to him. a spark that said he wasn't completely alone. Daniel couldn't take it anymore. He walked straight into Ethan's house the next morning without knocking, something he had never done before. Emma stepped aside silently and pointed toward Ethan's room. Daniel entered and found Ethan sitting on the floor with old photos, his mother's, some childhood moments, and Lucy's picture that he now pushed away. Daniel didn't speak. He simply sat beside him. Minutes passed. Ethan finally broke the silence. "Why do you keep coming?" he whispered. Daniel replied with a firm voice, "Because you're my brother, and I don't abandon my people." Ethan's throat tightened. Daniel continued, "You think Lucy was the only love you ever had? No. You've been loved since the day I met you. You've been loved by Emma every second. You just never saw it because you were searching for something else." A tear rolled down Ethan's cheek. Daniel placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're hurting. Fine. But you're not alone, not while I." For the first time, Ethan hugged Daniel tightly, letting years of bottled pain fall out silently. Later that evening, Emma found an envelope outside the door with Ethan's name on it. She ran to him. Ethan opened it slowly. It was from Lucy. Her words were trembling, filled with guilt and confusion. "Ethan, I never meant to hurt you. You were the one person who made me feel safe. But life pulled me another way. I hope someday you forgive me." Ethan's hands shook. The letter hurt, but it also set something free inside him. He whispered, "I don't hate her. I never could." Emma hugged him tightly. For the first time, Ethan realized Lucy was not the villain. Life was. Circumstances were. Timing was. And he needed to learn to breathe again. Daniel forced Ethan out of the house the next morning. "We're going somewhere," he said. Ethan protested. "I don't want to go anywhere." Daniel firmly replied, "I didn't ask." He drove him to the old park, where the three of them, Ethan, Emma, and Daniel, used to laugh and run as kids. Ethan stood there silently. A flood of memories rushed through him. This place held his happiest moments. Daniel said softly, "You weren't always broken. You just forgot who you used to be." Ethan closed his eyes, letting the cool wind touch his face. For a moment, he felt young again, free again, alive again. He whispered, "I want to try. I want to be okay again." Daniel smiled. That's all we needed to hear. That night, Ethan sat at a small cafe near the park. Emma had insisted he take a little time alone. As he sat quietly sipping tea, someone accidentally bumped his table. A girl dropped her books. "I'm so sorry," she said, rushing to pick them up. Ethan bent down to help. Their hands touched for a moment. She smiled shyly. "My name is Mia." Ethan nodded politely. "I'm Ethan." There was no spark, no magic moment, nothing dramatic. Just a simple, warm interaction. But after Mia walked away, Ethan realized something. He didn't feel pain. He didn't feel fear. He didn't feel broken. He felt normal. For the first time in a long time, he whispered to himself, "Maybe life still has something left for me." And that tiny moment quietly planted a new seed in Ethan's heart, a seed of healing. Ethan walked alone through the quiet evening streets. The lights around him felt blurry, softened by the weight inside his chest. He thought about how much time had passed, yet his heart still carried old scars. Emma noticed he was quieter these days. She sat beside him on a bench and said softly, "Ethan, you don't have to pretend you're fine." He gave a small smile. "I'm trying, Emma, but some nights feel heavier than others." She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You're not alone. I'm right here. Daniel's right here. We'll walk this with you." For the first time in a long while, Ethan felt a tiny, warm spark inside. the feeling that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't completely broken. The next morning, Ethan visited the small cafe he used to go to with Lucy years ago. The place looked the same, but he felt different. He sat by the window, breathing slowly, letting memories come and go. Mia, who worked there now, approached with a smile. "You're back. Haven't seen you in a while." Ethan nodded. "Yeah, just trying to breathe again." Mia looked at him gently. "You seem like someone who carries a lot. Coffee might help. Sometimes, small things matter." Her words were simple, but they touched a quiet corner in Ethan's heart. He whispered, "Maybe you're right." He didn't know why, but her kindness felt safe. Not heavy, not demanding, just soft. Daniel invited Ethan to a small get-together at his apartment. Nothing loud, just warm lights, soft music, and a few close friends. Ethan walked in slowly. He felt nervous, unsure if he was ready for any kind of crowd. But Daniel hugged him immediately. "You showed up. That's enough for tonight." Ethan looked around and realized something important. Everyone here cared for him without asking for anything in return. He sat quietly, watching people laugh and talk. A strange calm washed over him. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like a burden. He felt human again, present, alive. Later that night, Ethan stepped out onto Daniel's balcony. The city lights stretched endlessly. He whispered to himself, "I'm still here. I'm still standing." Emma joined him. "You're healing, Ethan. Slow doesn't mean weak." He took a deep breath. "I thought I lost everything when I lost love." Emma shook her head gently. "No. You didn't lose everything." Ethan looked toward the sky. For the first time, he believed it. A few days later, Ethan returned to the cafe. Mia waved at him with a friendly smile. "You came back again. I'm glad." Ethan sat down, feeling surprisingly relaxed. "You know, life hasn't been kind to me, but I'm learning to give myself another chance." Mia placed the cup in front of him and said softly, "You deserve peace, Ethan, and you deserve to be loved, even if the past didn't give you that." Her words hit deep inside him, not because she was replacing anyone, but because someone finally spoke to him without breaking him. Ethan looked at her, feeling something new, something gentle, something that did not hurt. He wasn't in love, but he was healing, and that was enough. The rain was falling softly that evening as Ethan walked home alone. He didn't rush. He let every drop settle on his skin, as if the sky was crying the tears he no longer knew how to release. He kept thinking about Mia's words at the cafe. "You deserve to be loved, even if life didn't give you that." Those words kept echoing inside him like a heartbeat he didn't know he had. When Ethan reached his small apartment, he didn't turn on the lights. He sat on the floor, legs pulled to his chest, and he whispered into the darkness, "I'm trying. I just don't know if I'm enough." A gentle knock came at the door. It was Emma. She stepped inside, saw his eyes, and didn't say a word. She simply sat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. "You don't have to be perfect, Ethan," she whispered. "You just have to keep breathing." For the first time in years, that felt possible. The next day, Ethan met Daniel at the old bridge overlooking the river. Daniel leaned against the railing and said, "You're quieter again. What's going on?" Ethan stared at the water below. "Sometimes it feels like everyone sees something good in me, but I don't know how to see it myself." Daniel sighed deeply. "Because your whole life, people taught you you weren't worth anything, but you survived it. That already makes you stronger than them." Ethan felt a painful warmth in his chest. He remembered nights in foster homes, rooms where love never entered, words that cut deeper than fists. "I'm scared to trust people," Ethan confessed. Daniel placed a hand on his back and said softly, "Then start small. Trust moments, trust breaths, trust the people who stayed." For the first time, Ethan didn't reject the advice. He let it sit with him, like a seed waiting for spring. Mia noticed his quiet entrance when he returned to the cafe that afternoon. She walked over with a soft smile. "You look tired," she said. Ethan nodded. "I dream a lot these days, mostly about my past." She pulled out the chair and sat across from him. "You don't have to explain everything to me, but if you want to talk, I'll listen." He hesitated, but something in Mia's calm eyes made him feel safe enough to breathe. "When I was a kid," he began slowly, "I used to wait at windows every night, just hoping someone would come and take me home." Mia's eyes softened with sadness. "You grew up feeling unwanted." He nodded. "Yeah, and now I don't know how to believe anyone truly wants me around." Mia leaned forward slightly. "Well, I'm glad you're here, and that's real." Something inside him trembled. Not fear, something gentler, something he wasn't ready to name. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He walked through the city streets, letting neon lights guide him. He ended up standing outside the riverfront, where he used to sit alone as a teenager. He whispered into the cold wind, "I've spent my whole life waiting for someone to choose me." A voice came from behind. It was Emma. "You were chosen, Ethan, by the people who stayed, by the people who love you now." He slowly turned toward her. "Why is it so hard to believe that?" Emma stepped closer. "Because you never had that kind of love before, and people fear what they've never known." Ethan swallowed hard. "Do you think I can ever be normal?" Emma shook her head gently. "No, Ethan, you won't be normal. You'll be stronger, kinder. You'll be someone who survived what others couldn't." He felt tears burning in his eyes, the kind that come when pain finally meets truth. Ethan spent the next morning sitting near the window, watching the city wake up. He held a notebook in his hand, something he hadn't touched in years. He opened it and began writing. Not a letter, not a confession, just feelings. Words poured out, about pain, about loneliness, about the little boy who never got picked, and the man who was still learning to pick himself. Later, he met Mia outside the cafe. She noticed the notebook and smiled. "You're writing again." "Trying to," Ethan replied softly. "It helps me understand myself." Mia looked at him for a long moment. "You know, healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means learning to live even with the scars." Ethan exhaled deeply, feeling the weight of her words settle somewhere deep inside him. For the first time in his life, he felt like he was becoming someone new, someone who didn't just survive, but someone who could grow. Lucas stood outside Emma's house, the cold air settling on his skin like the weight of years of silence. He knew she wouldn't step outside, not after everything that had happened, but still, he stood there, hoping fate would bend just once in his favor. Inside the house, Emma looked at the window, but didn't move the curtain. Her heart trembled, because she knew exactly who was standing outside. The boy who once loved her more than life. The boy she could never return to. Lucas whispered to himself, "I just want to talk, just one last time." Suddenly, Clara arrived in her small blue car and stepped out quickly. Clara had become his closest support, a quiet companion through his storm. "Lucas," Clara said gently, "you can't stay here forever. She has moved on." Lucas looked down. "I know, but my heart, it doesn't know that." Clara placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then let me help you teach it." For the first time, Lucas didn't flinch. Maybe because he was finally too tired to resist kindness. They walked back to the car together. Behind the curtain, Emma wiped her eyes. "Goodbye, Lucas," she whispered. Lucas sat with Clara at the lakeside, the same lake where he once confessed his love to Emma years ago. "Do you ever feel," Lucas said quietly, "like life took everything from you except your heartbeat?" Clara replied, "Yes, but sometimes what's left is exactly what can save you." She told him about her own lost love, about the man who walked away without goodbye, leaving her broken. Lucas finally saw that he wasn't alone. They talked for hours about pain, choices, regrets, and things they wish they could change. And slowly, something shifted. "Lucas," Clara said, "you don't need someone to complete you. You need someone to understand you." Lucas looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. Maybe understanding was more important than love that never returned. Suddenly, Lucas felt light, not healed, but no longer drowning. Days passed. Lucas stopped standing outside Emma's street. He stopped waiting for a message that would never come. He finally started existing again. Clara and Lucas worked together at the community shelter, helping children with emotional issues. Lucas saw himself in those kids, lonely, confused, searching for someone to say, "You matter." One evening, a little boy named Aiden hugged Lucas and said, "You helped me smile again." Lucas froze. That night, he realized his heart had a purpose beyond pain. Clara smiled at him. "You're healing, Lucas, even if you don't see it yet." For the first time, Lucas smiled genuinely. Maybe he really was. Lucas sat at his desk and wrote a letter addressed to Emma, not to win her back, not to beg, just to release everything he had held inside. He wrote, "Emma, I don't blame you. Love should never feel like a burden. I fought for us even when only I believed in us. But now, I want to live for myself. I hope you find joy. I hope I do too." He folded the letter and then burned it. Clara walked in and saw the ashes. "You finally let go," she whispered. Lucas nodded. "I finally let me go." Clara took his hand. This time, Lucas didn't let go. 1 year later, Lucas stood at the same lake, but he wasn't alone this time. Clara stood beside him, smiling softly. He had not replaced Emma. He had simply learned that love doesn't always arrive the way you expect. Sometimes, it walks into your life quietly, stands beside you, and stays. Emma passed by the lakeside with her husband. She saw Lucas and smiled. Lucas smiled back, not with pain, not with longing, but with peace. Clara whispered, "You finally found your ending." Lucas replied, "No, I found my beginning." And with that, the story of a boy who didn't get his first love became the story of a man who learned that life never takes something away without giving something better. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And on the top screen, a new emotional and heart-touching story is waiting for you. Make sure to check it out.